let's talk for a few minutes about unions. What is the role of unions from an economic standpoint? What's the good and the bad about unions? Well, unions create a fixed wage effect. And that means that if you have a job, say, as a carpenter, and you have a certain level of experience, you're going to get the same wage as any other carpenter with that same number of years of experience, regardless of your skill, regardless of your effort. As long as you put in a reasonable amount of effort, you're going to get that wage per hour. So what does that do then to the incentive? Well, we talked about this in class. What if I offered my class and said, everybody who's a sophomore who takes my class will get a B minus. And everybody who takes my class as a freshman will get a B plus. Doesn't matter who you are. If you come in, you come to class, you get that grade. Well, the people who want to get an A, they're not going to come take my class. And the people who take my class who aren't looking for an A are probably not going to work very hard. They're going to do the minimum amount of work in order to get that grade. So it's the same thing with the unions. So what we get is a large breadth of mediocre work. And this is what killed, for example, the car industry. Because the U.S. auto workers who were union workers, although some of them were very good, many of them were not. And when I was younger, they used to say, never buy a car that was manufactured on a Monday. Find out what day of the week it was made. And if it was made on a Monday, don't buy it. Why would that be? Hangovers. You don't want to buy a car that was made by a whole bunch of people with hangovers. So, workers make a difference. Now, in some states, in some areas, the unions are protected by government, meaning you cannot get a job unless you belong to the union. And that makes it very difficult for negotiations between firms and unions because the unions have a monopoly or a monopsony, in this case, over the firms, and so they can make enormous demands. That makes them very difficult. Makes it very difficult for them to compete on the world market against areas that don't have those kinds of laws, and so firms tend to fail in those states. We've seen it over and over again. There are states, of course, who have right to work laws, and in those states, the employees can choose to join the union or not, and that allows for more negotiation. Anyway, unions can be great in providing protections for workers and making sure that there aren't violations of that sort, and where there's danger and so forth to the employees. And there's other benefits too, as long as they don't lose a competitive advantage in the market.